Hello there everyone, my name is Christina and today I'm going to show you how to make this Macrame tree of life. And this is what it looks like. So this is just the one that I'm going to be showing you, this design with these colours. And you have the frame running around the outside here forming the circle, which I'm also going to show you how to make the frame if you want to make it yourself. If you don't, you can always buy some metal frame or wooden frame even that you can macrame it onto. So that's up to you, but I'm going to show you how to make it if you want to make your own. And this is just a pendant I turned this into, and size wise. And it measures just about 7.5 centimetres or about 3 inches. So that's a nice size for a pendant. Now I've also made some other ones. So it's just to show you some different alternatives you can do with it. I made these as earrings as well. So smaller size, it's the exact same technique. I've just used some different materials to get a completely different size of it. Now these measure about 5 centimetres across, which is about 2 inches. And obviously just attached them to earring findings. And again made my own frame. So it's just to show you what you can do with it. So I've got a pendant here and my earrings. And you can even make something like a wall hanger as well, that'd be really nice. But if you want to learn how to do it and use the technique, then keep watching. And here are the things that you're going to need. Now if you want to make your own frame, you'll need some wire, and in this case I'm just using a silver coloured regular round wire, and it's a 1.25mm. Now you can work with say a 1.5 or even a 1mm. I just like this because it's a bit stronger than a 1mm, but it's still more malleable than a 1.5. So it's really what you feel comfortable working with, but just something that's going to be strong enough to hold the frame. And then to help create the frame, you'll need a selection of some basic tools as well. Now the thread that I'm going to be using to make the actual tree, so the macrame part, is just some nylon thread here. And this is about a 0.4mm thickness. And these are just the colours I'm going to be working with, like this kind of browny burgundy is going to be the tree itself, and then these colours I'm going to use to fill in the leaves, so it'll become like an autumn tree. But you don't have to use this specific cord or thread. You can use many different kinds and thicknesses as well. This is just what I'm using for this specific one to kind of reach the size that I'm showing you in this video. And then to help finish off your thread, you'll also need some glue and a scissor. And the glue that I'm using is just what's called GS Hypo cement. And I really like this glue because it dries clear when it dries, and it stays kind of flexible as well, so it doesn't go hard and maybe kind of scratchy or itchy or anything. But even though it stays flexible, it's still really strong, and then also it has a really fine tip nozzle to it, so you can really do some precision gluing with that, and that's quite helpful when you're doing macrame. So all these materials that I've just shown you is going to be to make this pendant of my macrame tree. So this is going to be roughly the size. You can obviously adjust the size how you want to. It depends on the size of the frame you do. But just to tell you the materials that I used to make the earrings, like I said, it's the exact same technique. The only difference that made the difference in the size is the materials that I've used. So the first difference in that is the outer frame, which obviously this is a lot thinner, this wire, so you'll need a different thickness of wire if you want to make it smaller. This particular one is a 0.6mm, but you could quite easily use a 0.8mm as well. A 0.8mm is a little bit stronger than the 0.6, but I've just used a 0.6 for this. Now the thread that I used to make the earrings with is always not the same as this that I made the pendant with, because they're going to be a little bit too thick to achieve this kind of quite detailed and small pattern on this small frame. So what I did use was these little spools, and these are S-long threads, and it's a size D or Tex 45, and this is just the colours that I work with. It's a brown for the base of the tree, and then I work with 2 tones of green and a red one to fill in the leaves with, just to get more like a summery look to this tree on the earrings. And obviously working with this thread is very different than say this thread or even thicker, because it is very fine. It's almost basically like sewing thread, and it's quite commonly used for things like soutache and just sewing and threading things. So it's going to take a lot more patience to work with this, but this is what I used to create the earrings with. So get your materials together and then let's get started. So first we need to cut a wire ready, and we just need one length of a 1.25mm wire, and what I cut is about a length of roughly 45 centimeters. Now you're not going to be using this whole length. Obviously it depends how large you want your piece to be. If you want to make it larger you might need a longer length. But it's just also because it's such a thick wire, you need some extra length at the ends to finish off the piece. So you have something to work with at the ends, even though we'll be cutting it off. So about 40 to 45 centimeters to make roughly the size that I'll be showing you. So I've cut my piece of wire off like I said, and what you can do is, what I always like to do anyway, is kind of run it through my fingers for a little bit, just to warm up the wire and kind of smooth it out a bit, and straighten it a little bit as well. And I also use some nylon coated pliers like this, flat nose ones, and use them to kind of smooth the wire out a bit to make sure there isn't really any kinks or bends in it, and that's pretty straight. If you don't have these, just use your fingers. If you do, you can use them if you want to. But what you'll find when you take the wire off is that it's got a natural curve to it. Now you don't necessarily need to make it so straight to get rid of this curve. It's fine to leave the curve in. What I mean by straight is just so there's no obvious bends or anything in it, because what we want to do is make a round circle that's as round, as perfect a round as possible, without any kind of weird bends in the wire. So that's what we need to do now. We need to start making our circle to form the frame for our tree. So what we need to do now is start shaping this piece of wire into the rounded shape that we need for the frame. Now what you need to try and do is shape this to a perfect circle, as perfect as you can get it. So obviously as round as possible. An easy way to do this is, if you have something round of the shape and the size that you want it to be, is to just basically shape this wire around it, and then it'll obviously get the perfect shape. If you don't have anything, all I would do, and what I normally do, is use my fingers. So you just gradually, because you have this original curve on the wire from when taking it off the spool, so just keep that curve and then keep working with that curve, and gradually using your fingers, warming up the wire, keeping that rounded shape, and just making a circle, and like a smaller and smaller circle as you go, and then just kind of keep bending it into shape. And you can grab the ends a bit. As you can see, it's out of shape, but just keep using your fingers to get your rounded circle. Just spend a bit of time on doing this, or if not, like I said, and just fold it around something round to help you get that perfect circle. So shape this into a circle shape now, and as perfect as I can do. And then you have your two ends of your wires overlapping at the top here, like that. And this is obviously where they meet, and now what we need to do is bend these back so we can then make the bail. So to do that, what you need to do is where your wires are crossing over, where they meet basically, this is where we need to bend them back. So get some flat nose pliers out, or chain nose, whatever you have, and then what we need to do is place these, you do one wire at a time. We want to place them up here where we want to start the bail. And then bend it back like so, so you get this at an angle, a nice right angle here. And you can kind of straighten this out as much as possible. And that's one side, you have your end bend back there. And then on the other side, we want to do the same thing, where if you kind of lie them together where you want it to lie, so where this front wire now meets the back one where you bend it up, you want to then grab the front one with your pliers around there and then bend that back as well. Again, as right an angle as you can, and then just straighten out your wire here. And then we can take our pliers out, and then what you'll find is that they'll meet up like this, and then that'll shape and form the circle shape that we need for the frame. And now what you want to keep doing as you're making this step by step is keep checking your circle to see if it's still got the nice rounded shape that you want, just to make sure it doesn't go too out of shape. So, because if it does go out of shape, it's better catching it while you still can than finishing it, and then it's out of shape. It's going to be more difficult to correct. So there we have the basic shape and the beginning of the bail. So I'm just going to correct these wires a little bit so they kind of go more straight up. And this is where you just tweak it a little bit until they sit right how you want them to sit. So something like this. And then now we need to start making the actual bail. Now what you can do at this point, and we've got the shape in place, what you can do with the circle piece is go in and work harden it a bit to strengthen the frame even more if you need to. You can either use a hammer, a jewelry hammer, or flatten it, or kind of just work harden it with something else. And if you don't want to get kinks or anything in the wire, just be gentle about using a hammer and that. So that's an option you can do now, and especially maybe if you're using the 1mm, that would be a good idea, just to give that extra strength to the frame. So now what we need to do, start making the loop to form the bail. So again, I'm going to get my flat nose pliers in, and then on the one side, one wire at a time, I'm going to go in and grab that just make sure it has the right shape and angle, and then I'm grabbing that with my pliers. You just want to go up about 1/2 centimetre to 1 centimetre or so, because you need a bit of space in between the angles that you've made and the loop that you'll be making, because what we're going to do is a wrap loop, so you need the space in between there for the wrapping. So I'm going to bend this back a bit, not a complete right angle, a bit more like that. Try and keep your wire as straight as possible, that helps throughout, like so. And then what we need to do is make the loop. So to make the loop, you can get out some round nose pliers if you have them. That's perfectly fine to use, because you just choose whatever size you want the loop to be on your round nose pliers. That's where you place them. Or you can use something like this. It's a 6-step bail making plier, and you just then choose what size you want your loop to be and go in with that, and then place that, whether it's this or your round nose pliers, right above where you made that last angle, and then bend this around like so to get your loop shape. So you have a rough loop started there. And then what we need to do is kind of get this tail to come around this wire as well. So I'll kind of trap this wire in there. So when I take this out, you can see that this wire that we made the loop with is kind of going around the other one as well and trapping it in there. And then all we need to do is perfect the shape a bit, because it's a bit too open on the other side. So you just keep working with your wire until you reach the shape that you want it to have. There's something roughly like this. And then what we need to do is use the rest of this tail that we made the loop with to make the wrap right around both of these two wires now, to basically trap it all in place. Now this is the trickiest part, only because we're working with this gauge of wire. so this thickness of wire, because it's not quite as malleable as thinner gauges. This kind of is the trickiest part, just purely because we need to wrap it. It's not difficult, it's just the strength of the wire. So I'm going to get my flat nose pliers out again, and then go in and grab on top of that loop and the wire that's been trapped in there. And make sure that these kind of sit flush, so they're in place. And then we need to start wrapping this tail around, like I said, to fill in this space and create the wrapped loop. So you kind of just want to do this, take your time doing it because it's a thick wire, get it nice and neat, wrap it all the way down. Careful not to cross over each other, so your wraps are lying right next to each other, or your coils, so they're nice and neat. And if you need to, if you kind of find that they're not so neat, you can always use pliers to help you do this, or kind of push a bit of wire in place. Now we're about there. So I'll wrap that, filled in the space, and you can always just go in before you finish it off, just make sure everything is nice and tight, squeeze it all together. And then what I'm going to do is we need to finish off this end. So you now need to get some cutters out so we can cut that off. So what I'm going to use for this is I'm going to get my flush cutters out, just so we can get a nice neat cut and then tuck it in, and then there won't be anything kind of scratching or catching on anything. If you just have regular wire cutters, that's fine as well. You just need to make sure that you tuck it in properly afterwards. So we have this little bit of tail left. So I'm going to go in kind of very close right at the back here, and then what you'll find is there's still a bit sticking out, it's not quite flush. So for this I'm going to get out some chain nose pliers. You can also use your flat nose pliers if that's what you have, and we basically just need to tuck in this end. So you just take your pliers, go in all right on that end and start squeezing it down, and then just run your finger over it. And if you can feel it still, just go in again, squeeze it a bit more until you can't feel it anymore, because that means it won't catch or scratch on anything, and it's kind of hidden underneath there and tucked in. So that's how to finish off that end. So as you can see, we have the very end tucked in there, so nice and securely. And now all that's left is to finish off this other wire. So what I'm going to do with this is, it's coming out from the very middle of all your coils, all your wraps, and it's kind of coming out on the one side. I'm going to bend it down to that side, stick to that side. Try and make sure you kind of hold your piece, obviously firmly, but a bit gently as well, so you don't distort anything too much. But if you do, we can always just go back in and correct it after. And then what I'm going to do is wrap it around like this. So bring it down the side, pretty nice and close, so it doesn't stand out too much. Then bring it around the back, to then bring it all the way around to the front. And now what I'm going to do is cut it down a bit, so I have a bit of length, because I'm going to finish it off by making a little swirl, so that makes a little feature at the front and also finishes off this end nicely. Now how long you make this piece, so how long you cut it down to, kind of determines how large your swirl is going to be. So that's really up to you. If you want it quite small, then cut it down to a shorter length. Otherwise, then cut it to a length you want. And then we need some round nose pliers for this. And basically start right from the tip of the wire. And I like to go in as far towards the tip of my round nose pliers as well as I can, just to get the swirl started off as nice and tight as possible, really. If you want a more open swirl, then that's fine, you can do that. I'm just going to get it going first, like this. And then what I like to do is grab my cutters again, and then just go in and cut the very tip off, because I find when you're just doing this, the very first piece that you do here, isn't that rounded in my opinion. It's a little bit more like a drop or an oval shape. So to get it completely round, I just cut off another 1 or 2 millimeters after I started swirling it, and go back in and just keep swirling then. Because it's thick wire, it takes a little bit more work, and it's a little bit more difficult working with this thicker wire, but just take your time, and like I said, if you need to, you can use a bit of a smaller gauge. And we're getting there. I'm going to get some chain nose or flat nose, whichever, pliers out, help the swirl along. You can help compress it a bit if you need to, and then help swirl the rest of this until you reach where the wire is coming out, roughly like this. Make sure everything is in place, it sits where you want it to sit, and then all I'm going to do is press this in to sit right in front of this, the wrap that we did with the previous wire. So this is going to be the front, and you have this little feature at the front, your swirl. So this is basically your frame done. Now if you kind of messed up the shape of this a little bit, the rounded shape, if you distorted it a little bit while you worked with it, just kind of take the time now to get this back into perfect shape. What you can do is put it over something. If you used something else to wrap it around first to get the circle shape, put it back on that, and that can help you get the shape. Otherwise, just manipulate it a little bit and kind of round it off with your fingers until you feel it's nice and even. So that's your basic frame and shape that we're going to be using to then start making a macrame on. So now that we have a frame ready to go, what we need to do is get all our cords or threads ready. And what I'm done is I'm using this colour, like I said. The colour that we need to attach to this frame is the colour, the base colour of your tree basically. So what's going to be around the leaves and then forming the trunk. As you can see on the one I've already done, it's going to be this colour that's attached to the frame around. So that's the colour that you need to cut, whatever colour you've chosen for that. And what we need to do is, for this size that I'm making here and this thickness of cord or thread, what you need, for my specific piece, I've used 42 lengths of 1 meter each. And now that's just what I've used, it doesn't have to be the specific amount, because to explain to you what you need to do is basically one leaf, as you can see if you go around the frame, one leaf uses 3 lengths of these cords or threads. So that's why you don't have to specifically use 42 lengths. All you need to make sure is on each side here I've got 7 leaves on the first row, the outer row. What you can have less, you can have 6, 5, you can have more as well. As long as you just make sure that it's 3 lengths of these threads to begin with per leaf. So if you want 8 leaves instead of 7 like I've done, you just add another 3 lengths, so then you'll obviously need that extra amount. So that's kind of, I'm going to be using 42 to kind of get this look, but as long as you remember it's 3 lengths per leaf, and then you multiply that by the amount of leaves that you want to have. So that's the amount of cords and threads that you need, and they need to be roughly about 1 meter each. Now this will be kind of too long to use all of it, you'll be cutting something off, but you need to have enough to work with at the end as well, so you don't want it to be too fiddly. So that's why 1 meter roughly. Even though we're not going to be using all of it, it's better having a bit too much. So to attach all the thread or cords, what I'm going to do is I've cut them already in the 1 meter length like I said, and then I'm going to put them together at the end and then fold them over, and then where I have my finger here is roughly the middle, so I made this loop at the middle part. I'm going to keep hold of that loop because that's what we'll be using to attach, and the knot that we'll be using to attach to the frame is called a lark's head knot. Now if you're not too familiar with macrame knots, I have a video on basic macrame knots that might be helpful. I'm going to put a link to that in the description box. Otherwise what you do is you grab your frame, and then I go in from the front down through the middle with the loop I've created roughly in the middle of my thread. And then I take it out. It doesn't matter where you start, I just normally start on my left side and fill up this side of the frame first and then go to the other side. And then you want to put your fingers through that loop, like so, and then grab the tails, pull them through the loop, and then pull the loop tight, like so. So that is now attached, but then what we need to do is we need to add a half hitch on each side of this lark's head knot. So to do that, you do one side at a time. What you'll find where your cords are coming out from, they'll naturally go into kind of each their own side, so just keep them to that side. So I'm going to take my right one, put it back over the front of your frame, and then the end, the tail of it, loop it around your frame and pull it through the loop that you created. So it looks roughly like this, and then tighten that against your lark's head knot, and then do the same on the other side. Get this one out of the way. Take your cord or thread over your frame, loop back around the frame, and then pull it through the loop, like so. And then tighten that. And there you have your first cord or thread attached to your frame. And it sits on there nice and securely now because the half hitches on the side help keep the knots in place. So that's your first one attached. So I've now attached my third one as well. So I've got 1, 2 and 3 threads attached, and 3 lengths to begin with. And like I explained, this will form one leaf. So in total now, your 3 lengths of thread have turned into 6 working threads. And then this will be part to form your one first leaf on the first row around. So you just keep adding your threads like this. So keep attaching all your threads or cords all the way around until you've reached as many as you want to add. So I've now attached all my lengths of thread onto my wire frame, and now we're ready that we can start making our micro macrame part. So what we're going to do is, I'll show you on the one I've already made, is we need to make a very first row of leaves all the way around. So we'll just start from one end and work our way one leaf at a time and then build it up that way. So to do the macrame part, what I'm going to be doing is working on a board where I'm going to be using these T-pins to pin my work in place to help keep it secure, so it's just nice and easy to work with. And it's just a regular macrame or project board. You can find different ways of doing and fasten it down. It's just use whatever you have, but otherwise I'm going to use this to work with. And then what I'm going to do is move this into position just to make it more comfortable to work with, because what I'm going to do is start from the left side and work my way around and just do a bit at a time. So I'm just going to turn it around just to make it easier to work with. It doesn't really matter. And then what I'm going to do is separate out the cords that I'm going to use first. So like I said, we need 6 lengths for each leaf. So these I'm going to be working with. And the first row all the way around, you can separate them out like this. It's not until the next row where we're going to be kind of putting those leaves together, and that's when you can't pull them apart anymore. But for the first row you can, just to give yourself a little bit more space to work with. So I'm going to separate them out and then take all the other cords and get them out of the way, like so. And then I'm going to pin this into my board to make it easy for me to start working with it. So just use the loop that I've made and then pin it kind of around inside the frame so my frame doesn't move around on my board. So like this. And then I'm going to grab my lengths of cord or thread, and then we need to start making the first leaf. And to do this, I'm going to show you how to do it here, but otherwise I also have another video where I've used this same technique in making a bracelet, and that might help you understand the technique as well. So I'm going to link that in the description box so you can have a look at that. But otherwise, what we need to start doing is separate the lengths out. So the first row, what I like to do is I just start from, because we're using these 6 lengths, so I start from the right side of these 6 cords and work my way across. You can do it the other way if you want to. This is just what I'll be doing because you'll be switching direction throughout the rows anyway. This is just what I'm going to start with. So I take my first 2 threads furthest to my right, separate them out, make sure you take the very first one and cross that over all the others, like so. So you're taking the very first thread from the right side and crossed it over all the others, and then the very next one and all the others are coming out underneath, and the very next one is the next one you'll be working with. So the one you brought over is your holding cord, and the one you're holding underneath is your working cord. So what I'm going to do is use half hitches to make my leaf. So I take my working cord around my holding cord and then pull it back through the loop that we've created with the working cord, like so. So it's coming up through here. And then we need to tighten this all the way up till it won't go any further. And then one more, we're going to be doing double half hitches all the way around your finger and through the loop, creating your half hitch and then tightening it, like so. And what you want to do is when you tighten your knots, your holding cord, you need to hold that quite taut. Obviously not pull at it, but you need to hold it so it's pulled out nice and taut. And also I'm going to be coming down at an angle, so you don't want to be doing it right next to the frame underneath. You want to have it come out at an angle a little bit. So that's the first length. I'm going to put that out to the side, move on to the next one. So grab your lengths of thread and then pick out the very next one, like so. And then do the exact same thing with that. So remember, all of them are coming out underneath your holding cord and then around your finger through the loop, like so, doing your half hitch and tighten it. Remember, gradually as you move more further down, your holding cord will be coming out at that angle that we're making, around your finger and through the loop to create the double half hitch and tighten. Put that to the side, we're done with that one. Move on to the next working cord. Like so. Make your double half hitch with that. And basically almost what we're doing by coming out in this angle is we're making a bit of a triangle shape with the row of knots that we're doing now, except the top where they're attached to the frame, it's a bit curved, but otherwise it's almost a triangle shape. Moving on to the next length, always make sure to grab the very next cord or thread that's there to not cross them over. Do your double half hitches around your finger and through the loop. Around your finger and through the loop. And tighten. Put it to the side and we'll reach the very last one now. Around your finger and through the loop. Around your finger and through the loop. And tighten, like so. And that is your very first row to create your very first leaf. So now what we need to do is we need to start filling out the leaf with the colour that we're going to use for the first one. And for this I'm just going to use the yellow one. And for this tree I'm just using 4 colours to fill out the leaves. You don't have to use it, I just like doing that. Just because when you're using 4 colours you can more easily make sure that if you want kind of a pattern where none of the colours are touching each other, like on the one I've already made, none of the same colours are actually touching each other with the leaves. There's always other colours in between. And that's the easiest way to achieve that is by using 4 colours. But you can easily just use 1 if you want to, or 2 or 3 really, it doesn't matter. You can just completely use the colours to fill in that you want. So what I'm going to do is get my cord or thread, the yellow one that I'm using here, and just going to cut off a very short length. there's no really specific measurement with this, because whether you feel comfortable working with, because you don't need much to fill it in, you just basically need enough so you can also work with it. So this is maybe 20-25 centimeters or so. And then I'm going to grab all my lengths of thread again, bring them back in, and then separate them out again, go back to the very right side, put the others away, and then I'm going to work with these two first. And this time you have the very first one to the right and then the very next one. First we're going to grab the very next one, so the second one from the right. And this is the one we're going to attach a coloured thread onto. So fold it over in half, so you have about the middle is where your loop is, like this. I'm going to put that loop underneath that second from right thread. And then we're going to put your fingers through it and then grab the tails, the ends, and pull them through. And there you've attached your cord or thread, and that's using a lark's head knot. And then what you do is tighten up the knot and slide it all the way down your thread until it meets that row you made before, till it won't go any further basically. And then what we need to do is basically cage in that coloured thread. So I'll go back to using both of them, the first one from the right and then the second one that we just attached to. And the first one we bring over. So again, that first one is going to become the holding cord throughout the next row. And the one you attach the coloured thread to is underneath, and that's your first working cord. So now you'll be doing the exact same thing as the very first row. Grab your working cord around your finger and through the loop, and then tighten it all the way down again till it won't go any further. And one more time to make a double half hitch, like so. And that's basically caged in your coloured thread there. So now what we have is these two original cords that we have. The first one that's now the furthest to the right is the one that we just used to make the double half hitches. We're done with that for now, so we'll put that to the side. And the other one is going to continue to be a holding cord throughout this next row, but we're just going to fill it in as we go. So we just put that a bit to the side, but just so we can reach back for it. And then I'm going to go back to my coloured cord, my yellow one, and then grab the very next one of my original colour. So the very next one coming out from the very first row, and then bring that over my coloured threads. And don't worry about the other ones for now, just take one at a time. And then what we need to do is make another row with our coloured thread. So now this original one is going over, so that's your holding cord. So that's what I've got in this hand. And then I'm going to make my double half hitches with my yellow cords. So take one at a time around your finger and through the loop. Make sure you kind of grab the right one. You'll see from where you attach them, they're naturally coming out to each their own side. So just stick to that. Then otherwise make your double half hitches. Tighten it all the way down so it won't go any further. One more. Like so. And then grab the next one. Do the exact same thing around your finger and through the loop. Around your finger and through the loop. Like so. So that's your next row with your coloured cords. And then we need to go back to caging in this row. So we need to go back to using the holding cord. That's going to be the holding cord throughout that we used in the previous one. And the one we've just used as the holding cord for the coloured ones are now going to become the working cord. So that goes underneath, and then you take that around your finger and through the loop and tighten it. Around your finger and through the loop and tighten it. Always doing double half hitches throughout the whole thing. So that's your second row with your coloured thread. And then again, you keep doing the same thing. Grab your coloured threads to move on to the next one. Grab the very next original cord to make the next row of coloured. And you just do the exact same thing that you've just done. Make a double half hitch with each of your coloured cords. like so, and that becomes your third row. So again, we'll cross them over to make the bottom row and cage this one in. So around your finger and through the loop, around your finger and through the loop. There. And now let's put that out of the way, and it's gradually starting to build up now. We can see it taking shape. And then we've reached where we have 2 of our original cords left that we haven't used yet. I'm just going to retighten that up. And then what we want to do now is, instead of using both, what you'll find is the very first one we attached your cord basically is the equivalent of 1 double half hitch, and then the other 2 rows you have 2 double half hitches. So you kind of, from the first row you've increased, and now what we need to do, this is the last row, so we need to decrease again to get that leaf shape where it goes from point and then becomes bigger. So what we're going to do is not use the very first one. So put that away. I like putting it underneath all the other ones so it goes out of the way, and then just skip that and then make 1 double half hitch with the second length of the coloured thread that you have. So the exact same, just only do it with 1, like so. Then back to your holding cord in the bottom row, take that above, so the one you just had a holding cord, that was just your holding cord, that becomes your working cord, around your finger and through the loop, and tighten to cage that last row in with your double half hitch, like so. And then put that out of the way, and then you'll find you've decreased, so you're getting that shape of the leaf. So what we need to do now is not use this one last coloured we have left, so we put that to the side as well, put it underneath your very last original cord, so that comes above them, because then they're out of the way for now. Just like pretend they're not there. And then what we need to do is seal up the very tip on this end, and we do that by simply acting like we've made a row and we're caging in the row, but there's no colour there. So you take the one from the top, bring it underneath, and your holding cord that was your holding cord throughout the bottom row is still your holding cord, and you just make a double half hitch all the way up, and 1 more, and tighten, like so. And then that is basically your very first leaf. So you used your very first 6 lengths here to make your first leaf with. In my case I've made that yellow. And then we're done with these for now. So now it's time to move on to the very next 6th one and make our next leaf. So all you can do, if you need to, you can always, in the first row like I mentioned, push your cords kind of out of the way so it's a little bit easier to work with as you go, just to give yourself a bit more space. And I just normally put all my lengths, when I'm done with my lengths, I just put them kind of underneath my frame out to the side here, and that's just to help me keep them out of the way when I continue to work with them, like so. And you do this around the whole frame until you've used up all your cords, and then you've made the first row of leaves all the way around. So I've now continued making all my leaves around the frame, so I've now finished making the very first row of leaves. And then what you'll find as you make this project, as you can probably tell, you have a lot of cords or threads going on, and that's really going to be the most difficult part of this, is because you have so much going on, is keeping it organised and making sure you grab the right threads in that. So what you can do now is, if you want to try and minimise your amounts of threads or cords, what you can do is go in and take all your coloured ones now on the back side where they're coming out from, and separate them away from all your base colour, that's your tree, which in my case is the browny burgundy colour. And what you can do is then get a glue. Now I really like to use the GS Hypo cement glue for this, because it's it dries clear, which is obviously good, because so you can't really see it on the back, and it's really strong, but then also almost the best part is it has this really fine tip to it, So you can really do some precision gluing, which is great for this project. So what you can do is go in and just put some glue on the back, just where your cards are coming out. So just to basically secure them, like so. So what you can do then when it dries, go in and cut off all your coloured cards. So you do this, put the glue on all of them, and then you can cut off these ones. So then again you're just left with the base colour that you're using the whole time, the long threads that you're using, before you start making your next row. So that's up to you if you want to do that first, to kind of help minimise the amount of cards that you're working with. So I've now put glue on all the back of my leaves, just to secure the ends of my coloured cards, and then I'm going to go in and then get my scissor, and then take the cards from one leaf at a time, like this, and we're still on the back side now, and then I'm just going to put my cards in my scissor like this, and then kind of pull them up. Make sure you only have these cards in there, obviously. You don't want to accidentally cut off your long ones. And then you just cut them off gently, so you don't cut off the wrong ones by accident. So now to start the next row, I'm going to again start from my left side. It's just because that's what I feel comfortable with. It doesn't matter what side you start from. I'm going to get it into position again, so just turn it around because I'm going to start over here, so just to get a better angle to work from. And then I'm going to pin it back in my board to secure it down so I can move, so I can work with it comfortably without it moving. So roughly like this. And then we need to start making the leaves on the second row. Now on the second row of leaves, what you'll find is the leaves that we're making, before we went from right to left, on the second row here, I'll show you on the one that I've already done, they go the opposite direction, so they come from left to right. So that's what we'll be doing now. We're going to be doing the exact same thing, just working in the opposite direction, because this is how we're going to then attach the leaves from the first row together, so the whole thing becomes one piece. Because we're going to be using, like I said from the beginning, we have 6 cards to form one leaf. Now what we're going to do is use 3 from each of the previous leaves to form a new one, and that's how we're going to connect them together. So the first thing I'm going to do is go in and separate my cards out to grab the right ones that I need to use. And what you'll find is from the very first leaf that we did in the first row, you'll have 6 cards coming out, because that's what we used to make that leaf with. So that's these 6 that are coming out from the very first leaf. You can see there. Now what we need to do is separate them out, because we only want to use 3 from this leaf. So the first 3 on the left, we're going to put them to the side for now. So we're only using the last 3 to the right side. So we're using these 3, and then we need to go in and get the cards from the next leaf. And as you can see, I've grabbed the first 3 from that leaf, and the rest you want to just leave and put that to the side to get it all out of the way as much as possible while you're working with it. So we have our last 3 cards from the first leaf and the first 3 cards from the second leaf, and that's the ones that we're going to be using to form the new leaf to then bring these together. So to start with, we're starting from the left side this time. So separate your cards, get the very first 2 of them. So these 2 furthest to the left side. The very first one we bring over all the others, and then you want to start doing your double half hitches with the very next one, and they're all coming out underneath this. The one we just brought over is the holding card, and then do your double half hitches, tighten them all the way up till they won't go any further, like that. Grab the next one, still from the first leaf, so this is the third card we're using, coming out underneath, around your finger and through the loop to make your half hitch, and one more time to make your double half hitch, and then tighten it. And then we're moving on to the very first card from the next leaf, and that's what's going to then bring them together. So just continue, do your double half hitches to make the top row of your leaf, like so, and the next one, and still come down at an angle, just the other way. But what you'll naturally find is that because the very first card you take from the second leaf, when that meets up with the row that you're making, you'll naturally come down at an angle. And the last one, like so. So I've gotten the short length of my coloured cord that I'm going to use for this leaf ready. I'll cut it off, and again go back to my first two furthest to the left, and I'm going to attach the coloured cord to the second one in, just using the lax head knot, exact same way that we did in the first row, and push it all the way down. And then to lock that row in place, we switch our cords around and then do a double half hitches to start caging in the bottom of the rows, like so. And then grab your coloured cords again, take the very next one coming from the top row, bring it over them. So you take this long piece of cord from the top row, and that's going to be a holding cord for this row, and then you grab your coloured ones, the first one, and do your double half hitches to create the next row, and the second one. So as you can see, we're just doing the exact same thing as we did to create the other leaves. We're just working in the opposite direction and caging this row, like so. Moving on to the next one, grab the next long thread from the top row, the first one we did, and do your double half hitches with both cords, both lengths of thread again, because we just increased. Switch these two around to finish off this row and lock it in place. And now we reach the last row we're going to use with our coloured threads. So this is where we just need to do the decrease. So we're skipping the first one of the coloured ones, putting that to the side and underneath the other ones, and then just doing a double half hitches with the second one. Like so, and caging that row. And then to finish off the leaf completely, we bring the last card from the top row of the original colour over the coloured ones that you filled in the leaf with and put them out of the way. And then we just want to finish off the very tip with a double half hitch just with these two, like so. And there you have your very first leaf on the second row, going in the opposite direction as the leaves on the first row. So that's how you do the second row. Then obviously you continue. I'm just going to do the same that I did in the first one to get all the cords kind of out of the way as I'm working with them. Put them underneath the frame and then out to the side to help keep it a little bit more organised. Like so. And then all you do is continue. You now want to move on to the next leaf that you're going to do. So I've now gone all the way across on my second row here, making all the leaves, and I've also gone to the back side and cut off the excess coloured cords, just like I showed in the first row. And then what you'll find in the second row, like I explained to you earlier, is we've made all our leaves where we need 6 lengths of cord for each leaf, just like in the first row. The difference is now, as you can see where we started, I left out the 3 lengths of the thread or cord right at the beginning, and they are still coming out from the very first row, so they haven't been used in the second row yet. And the same thing on the other side, the very last 3 cords, because these would add up to a leaf together, so they make 6. But obviously because they're at the end, you have 3 on each side, so that won't work. So what we need to do is just find a way to just finish them off so we can bring them down and incorporate them into the next row. So to do that, I'm just going to get my piece into position again, just so you're kind of working from the right angle. That makes it a bit easier to work with. And I'm just going to take the last ones first. Doesn't matter which ones you do first, because you need to do both of them. And just pin my piece back in the board so I can work with it nicely and securely without it moving all over the place, like so. And then I'm just going to put all the others kind of out of the way so you don't get them mixed up, and you make sure that you grab the right cords. And then I have these 3 coming out from the very last leaf on the first row, so they haven't been used in this second row yet. So what I'm going to do to bring them down to be able to use them in the third row we're going to start making is basically just some half hitches. So I'm going to grab 2 lengths together and then 1 length alone. Doesn't matter which ones you do, you can do it like this or you can do it like this. That's up to you. The result will be pretty much the same. And then I'm just going to start with this one, my single one, and take that around the top of the 2 and back through the loop of itself, like so. So you get your reverse 6, and then just tighten that all the way up, and then you do it with the other side. Take it around, loop back on itself and pull through the loop, and then on this side you get your regular 6, just in my case with the 2 lengths, and then tighten that all the way up, back to the other side. And you just want to do this a couple of times. So just doing your alternating half hitches, like so, and you want to do it in the direction so it comes down this way. So as if you were making another leaf, you would be doing it in the right direction as well. So I will say something roughly like this. So I've done 4 in total now, and then this is roughly the same level with the bottom of the leaves on this second row. So now I need to start making the next row, because we finished off this second one now with our ends. And what you want to do in this third row is the direction of your leaves need to go the same direction as you did in the first row. So in my case that'll be from top right downward to the left. So we need to get ready for a first leaf, and we're going to incorporate then again the 3 that we just did on their own, because they'll be part of the first leaf. And then we need to get the very next 3 cords from the next leaf from the previous row, and put everything else out of the way. So that's these now that I have from this leaf. And then we need to start making the next leaf here, the very first one on this row, and we do this the exact same way as we did in the very first row. So you grab the furthest one to the right, bring it over all the others, and grab the very next one, and just do your double half hitches. And again, remember, come down at an angle. The next one. So these are the first 3 from the same leaf, and then we're just moving on to these, and these aren't coming out from a leaf, but you're just going to be using them the exact same way. So just kind of grab the first one that you reach, and then just continue as if normal, as if they were coming out from a leaf, like this. Now as you can see, this row, or these knots of half hitches we did with just the 3 cords, are just blending in nicely now, and you're securing that piece in place as well, like so. So there we used these 6 lengths of cord now to form that top row of the leaf, and now all you need to do it's the same thing. Fill in the leaf with whatever colour you want to fill it in with, and then just continue all the way across, making your row the exact same way. And at the bottom, as you have this like you did in the beginning, where you just have these knots on their own, the 3 cords, and you just do the same thing. You just incorporate them into the leaf once you get to it. You just start out with these as if they were coming from a leaf. So I've now finished off my 3rd row all the way around, and we now have 3 full rows of leaves. So now to start making the 4th row, we're going to continue doing the same thing, making the leaves, but this next row is just going to be a little bit different. Because like I explained, for each row that you move in, your leaves are going to sit closer and closer together. And if I were to just continue making leaves on the next row, the same way, filling the entire row in with leaves, they would actually start overlapping each other. And I want to avoid doing that. Again, we need to put my piece into position. I'm just going to again start from this side and just pin it onto my board so I can start working with it. So it's nice and secure. And then, like before, this row is going to start out the same way as the second one. So first of all, the leaves need to be going in this direction, from top left down to the right, in my case anyway. But also, like in that row, we just need to separate out 3 first lengths of cord first, because we need 3 from each leaf. So these 3 we're just going to do on their own, that little piece of half hitches, just like in the second row. So I'm just going to do that. And you can do that now, you can do that at the end of the row. It's up to you. I'm just going to do them now to kind of help get them out of the way. Something like this, I've done 4. And then I'm just going to put these out of the way. And then again, I'm going to grab my next 3, still from the first leaf. Just sort out your cords. So these 3, and then I need the first 3 from the next leaf. So I'm just starting to make my leaves again here. I'm going to be using these cords, and just put everything else out of the way if you can. And then you just do the exact same thing as in that second row, where you now start making your leaves. So I've now made these 2 first leaves on this row, and then I've gotten to a point now where I feel like if I were to just make another leaf, they will be way too close to each other, or maybe even overlapping. So that's really what it's about. There is no specific, you have to do 2 leaves and then what I'm going to do now and then so many leaves again. It really is a matter of just how it fits in your own opinion. So this is why I feel like if I were to make another leaf, they were going to be too close or overlapping. So this is where you then want to do this that I'm going to show you now. So you're still working with the groups of 6 lengths, like you do with your leaves, because you want to keep it in them groups. And then what you're going to do is, I separate out the 3. So the 3 from the first leaf still, and then the 3 from the second leaf. And I'm just going to start working with 3s. And this is where you want to basically make your chain of half hitches again, just like we did in the beginning of the row, and on the second row as well. So this is how you're going to fill out this little space, but taking up less space than a leaf would do, which then leaves more space for the next leaf. So I'm just going to do that, make that little chain of half hitches, and I've started with the 3 coming up from the first leaf, and I'm only going to make enough to basically reach just around the bottom, or a little bit below the next leaf, because we're then going to bring the 2 together. So I've made these, I made 3 half hitches on this side. Now I'm going to grab the other 3 on this side, coming from the next leaf, and I'm just going to do the same thing, just make 1 or 2, because these cords start from a little bit further down, like so, and then bring them together, and now you have 2 little chains here of half hitches, 1 coming from each leaf. Now what we're going to do is, because we're working in the groups of 6 because of the leaves, we're going to bring these 2 together. So you collect your 3 from the one side and 3 from the other side, and you're just going to keep doing your half hitches the same way, just with these 3 cards on each side. And you just continue until you start making these half hitches from the bottom of the ones you just made before. Like so. So this is basically going to form some branches coming out in between your leaves and starting to kind of form a bit, because obviously you have the tree trunk. When we get to that point, we're kind of working backwards, the leaves first and then working inwards towards the branches in the trunk. But this is what's going to then form some of the branches we're going to start to see through the leaves that are then going to turn into the trunk in a bit. So I've now made a little chain here of my half hitches, and that's taking up way less space than what a leaf would. So that's how we kind of take out some leaves in between here and there as we feel that we need to make space for them, but then also to start making the feature of some branches coming in through and having it all blend together. So I've now completed this row where I've reduced the amount of leaves that I made, and then instead filled in some of the spaces with the sections of half hitches that we did. So little chain links of half hitches, you can call it. And then what I've done is I started off with a section of the half hitches, and then I did 2 leaves, another section of the half hitches, 2 leaves, a section of the half hitches, 2 leaves, and again a section of the half hitches, 2 leaves, and at the end one more section of half hitches, and then I have space for 1 leaf, and then the very last section here, the last 3 cards with half hitches as well. So that's just how mine's worked out. Now you can do it this way if it fits yours, or you can just kind of work out how it works out best for you, where you need to have that extra space. So now what we need to do is go back to the beginning again, and then basically start making our very last row where we're going to incorporate some leaves. But yet again, because we're moving further and further towards the center of the circle, we need to again reduce the amount of leaves that we're going to be making, and then start making even more of our branches to then form into the actual trunk of the tree. So if I show you on the one I've already made, this is the point that we reached where we need to make the very last row, and as you can see, where we only have a few leaves going all the way around. In this case I have 5, which is again reduced from the previous row. So that's what you need to do now until we then reach the point where we're only working with our branches. So what I'm going to do is just take this off my board again, and then get it into position to go back from the beginning, just the place that I started working from every time. If you started from the other side, that's fine, just keep going back to where you want to start. And pin it back in so it can be nice and secure to work with. Like so. And then we'll need to start separating out our cords again so we can start off this next row. So what I'm going to do is get my first section of cords ready. So I grab the first 3 coming from that chain link of our half hitches, and then I grab the next 3. So this is just continuing to work, basically making the branches like I just showed you in the previous row. And I've already kind of made the first one, so I'm just going to go in and do a couple half hitches with these 3 coming out from the leaf, the first leaf on the previous row, just to kind of gather them together like so. And then I'm going to bring these 2 together as well, so you have kind of smaller branches coming out from a larger one. Once we could bring them together, that's what it's going to look like. So make sure you have all your cords together, kind of working as one. Just continue to do your half hitches like that, and then where your chain links, your half hitches ended previously, you now bring them 2 together just below that. And continue doing it in the direction coming, because I put mine to the side, coming downwards, so it's going in towards the center. Everything is always moving in towards the center of the circle. like so. Just do a few of them. It's not too crucial how many you do right now, just enough to kind of keep them together, because you can always go back and do an extra one or something if you need to make it just a little bit longer. So that's the first section. Put that out of the way. And then for this next section here, grab the next 3 coming out from the first leaf still, from the previous row, and then the next 3 from the next leaf. So we're still working in our sections or groups of 6. And then all I'm going to do with this is I want a leaf here. So I've now made that leaf and I've put my cord to the side to get them out of the way. And then really now it's just a matter of continuing like this. Looking at your cords and looking at your tree and seeing how it's coming together. And then just deciding what you want to do with your branches and your leaves really. It's kind of like the last row, there's no set pattern on it. It's just really how you want it to look and where you have space on that. So I've now finished off this row where I've made only my 5 leaves. So again, reduced the amount of leaves and then made my branches gradually thicker because we're moving towards the trunk. So now we reach the point where I'm no longer going to make any leaves. I'm just going to keep going around and kind of gather the sections up bit by bit. So the sections we're working with, I've already gotten a bit thicker, some of them, and I'm just going to basically keep working with them. Now the difference is now what I'm going to start doing is working from the middle of my row, so from the top, because this is where I want to start the base of my tree and then have all the rest come into it from the sides. So I'm going to grab some of my top cords, figure out which ones I want to work with, and just take your time to like separate your cords out, figure out what you're doing, where things are going and stuff. So I'm going to kind of start with these 2 sections. That's already coming from a bit of a thick branch section like there. And then what I'm going to do is continue working from that, adding all the rest into it as I move downwards. So what I'm going to do first to add to this section is we have these 6 lengths of cord coming from a leaf, all of them from the same leaf. And I'm going to use these to then create a bit of a chain link from there with our half hitches. So you just grab the cords that you want to use and start making your half hitches to form more branches kind of weaving in and out of each other. And we no longer have to worry too much about working in the sections of 6 because we're no longer making the leaves. So you can just kind of grab the cords that you want till you kind of reach the look that you want it to look like. So I've just done a couple of half hitches. If I try and get some of the others out of the way a bit. What I want to do is the original one I said that I'm starting from, the thick section, I want to incorporate the one I've just done into that. So all I'm going to do is, because I basically have 2 sections in this and 2 in this, but this section is a bit smaller, so there's a bit less cords than this thicker section. So just to try and even it out a little bit, I'm just going to grab just a couple of cords from this thicker section and bring over to that side. And it doesn't have to be precise, it's just kind of a rough feel because you want it to kind of look a bit natural on that, like a tree would. That's not complete 100% symmetrical on that. It's like it's growing naturally. And then I'm just going to make a half hitch or 2 with these sections, like so. Made 2 of them, and before I move too much further I'm going to have a look at all my cords again, and I'm probably going to then bring in some more. So this thick section in the middle that we're working from, always going back to that, we have the 2 sections that we're making our knots with, and then basically what we're doing is grabbing cords from the sides to bring into these sections. So I'm just going to grab some more cords from this side. And you just do this bit by bit, grab the ones that you think will fit, So I've got some more from this left side, and then for them to reach down, to where they would meet up with the bottom of this section, I'm just going to make a couple of half hitches with these alone to build a bit of a chain of your half hitches with them. So again, this is a bit of a thinner branch that's then going to move in to this thicker part in the middle, and just keep doing your half hitches. I think I'm going to just do one more, like so, and you can see that's now reached the point where one of your side sections are coming out from the knot on the middle row, like so. I'm just going to move to the other side and do the same. So I want to incorporate a little bit from both sides now. I've already got some half hitches started, so I'm just going to continue. And same thing, just make enough until you reach the bottom knot basically on the middle section. Like so. And that's now going to get incorporated with the section on the right of this. So this is now how it looks. We have the middle section, that's a chunky section, where you have one section at each side that you're working with, and then the cords coming from the left, we're going to blend in with the section to the left, and the same with the ones from the right. And then you just keep working with these as it's two sections. So you now want to use all these cords together to continue making your double half hitches. And as you're doing this, you're obviously getting more and more cords to work with in the sections. So what I like to do when I then start making my half hitches with more and more cords is to kind of comb through them, the sections, as I'm making my knots, just to make sure that I don't get like little pieces of cord sticking out, though I don't want them to stick out. So just pull everything until you're happy with it, like so. So another couple of half hitches, and then I'm going to incorporate some more. So I've now worked my way further down the trunk of the tree, and I've reached the last sections where I want to incorporate them. So I have my two large sections in the middle that I'm making my half hitch notches with, like so, and that's going to form the base of the tree. And then I'm just going to incorporate my last two sections into there, just like this. I've made sure that they reach the amount of knots, and just tighten them up if you need to. And I'm just going to continue doing my half hitches to incorporate them, combing through my cords as I go, especially now you're going to have a lot of cords in the same sections. So just make sure everything is pulled through, and then just keep making a couple of half hitches here. And as you can see, that's forming the base of your tree now, and it's gotten nice and chunky because we've incorporated all the others into it. So just keep doing your half hitches like this. As you can see, you're getting further and further down towards the frame here, and then you just kind of want to keep doing your half hitches until you feel like you reached a point where it's enough. So I'm going to say that's about there for me, because it's pretty much at the bottom meeting the frame, and if I were to make another one it would probably go over the frame, and it doesn't matter, there's a little bit of space, that's fine, because we're going to use that to then finish off the ends of this cord and basically make the roots of the tree. So to finish it off here at the end, we have our two large sections like this that we made the base of our tree with. And basically what we're going to do is keep using the same knot, but we're just going to then start separating them out into smaller sections again. So if I show you on this one, you can see this is where the large base of the tree ends, and then all we've done is use the same knot here, and you can see it's the same as up here, just in smaller sections again to make it look more like roots. So all you do to do that is you just start on one side, it doesn't matter where you start, and just grab smaller sections. It doesn't matter how many lengths of cord you have in, that's really up to you, how thick you want these sections. And then you just split it up, and you have the two sections here, and then just make a couple half hitches with that. Tighten it. And then this is where you just want to make enough until this section, this one is going to be right at the bottom because I picked them cords that came out there, but until that section reaches the frame. That's what we need to do now with all of them. So that's that one and reaches there. I'm going to grab another section. Like this. And then it's going to work its way a bit up the side of the frame. So this is going to sit, this section is going to sit next to this section on the frame. So the further out to the side you move of the cords that you're making these half hitches with now, the roots basically, the longer you need to make this chain of half hitches that we're doing now. But just measure it against the frame on where it's going to sit. Like that. And you just keep going like this. You can just do one side at a time if you want. We'll finish off this side, then you want to do the same thing on the other side here. So now I prepared all my roots along the bottom here, and as you can see, just by splitting them up into smaller sections, it still blends in nicely, so it just makes it look like the roots. Now what we have to do is secure all the ends of these cords or threads onto the frame. And the way that I do that is I take one section at a time. You just do one at a time and work your way across. And I normally start with this section right at the bottom, and then I work from the bottom in the middle and outward, just one side at a time. So I'm going to grab this first. This is a section I did with knots, right at the bottom. I'm going to grab one side of the section first, and we need to then grab the individual lengths of our thread, like so. So this is where you need to then grab the individual lengths again and do them one by one. And the first thing I'm going to do is you can just lift up all the rest and kind of try and get the rest of the cords out of the way as much as you can. And what I'm going to do, just going to get a pin to help me lift the frame, is lift up the frame and then get this cord back underneath the frame. So it's coming underneath. So that's the first bit. And then I'm going to do it again because now it's just in position, and now we need to make the knots to secure it in place. And to do that, basically we're still just doing half hitches, but we're just doing it around the frame. So I'll go back around the same way, underneath, like this. So you have your cord lying like this, basically looping around your frame, like so. And then I just do it one more time. But this time when you come back around, you need to come up through the loop that you made with the cord. And now before you tighten it, you want to tighten the first bit first, so you bring the trunk basically down right to where it's going to sit. And then when it sits there, you can then tighten the whole thing in place, like so. And then there you have your very first cord attached to your frame. So basically, the first thing we did was we went under the frame. That was just to get the cord into position, to then loop back around twice, but the second time coming through the loop. And then that secures the knot in place onto the frame. And you just want to do the same thing with all of your lengths of cord. And now the only thing I will say now I'm on this side, I'm just going to keep working with this side, is you might find, because when you think about it, all the lengths of cord that you have at the bottom here is all the same length that you had at the top, so the ones you first attached to your frame. If you just did the same amount of knots the whole way, there wouldn't be enough space on the frame, if you can see. If you did your double half hitches all the way around along the bottom as well, it will fill out so much because it will fill out the same space, or a little bit less maybe because you could squeeze it together, but it will roughly fill out the same space as around the top part. And obviously we don't want that to be, because as you can see on this one, the root section takes up a lot less space on the frame than the top of the tree, and that's what we want. So you might have to, in some cases with some of these cords, just do a single loop or a single half hitch around the frame rather than a double. But it'll still stay securely in place because it'll kind of get tightened in by the other knots that you're making around it. But also we're going to be gluing it off at the end to secure the whole thing in place. And then once you've gone in and done all your roots, attach them all, every single cord to the frame, and then go to the back, and then you'll find you still have your lengths left, and then obviously we need to get rid of them. So what you do is just, you want to push them lengths towards the back, so they're kind of coming out at the back. And then what I do is I get a bit of my glue, whether you use this or something else. E6000 would also be a good glue to use. It also dries clear and it's really strong, and again it stays kind of flexible when it dries. So you just get your glue, go in around the ends and just put a bit of glue around all the ends of your cord, and then you let it dry for a little bit, let it go tacky at least, or even dry completely, and then you just go in and cut off the excess cord pretty close down to where they're coming out from. Just make sure you don't obviously cut anything off that you don't want to cut. And then there you have your finished piece. So your finished Macrame Tree of Life, and this is the pendant. And you can obviously do whatever you want with this. This is just a technique to show you how to do it. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this Macrame coloured leaves technique. And this is the piece that I'm working on today to show you. So as you can see, this is the result, and I've turned this one into a bracelet, like so. So you could quite easily just make it like this, but this is mostly to show you the technique.